Every year, thousands of people flock to the Rio to play the WSOP Main Event, hoping that they will be the lucky one to lift the coveted bracelet and the handsome payout that comes with it. In this video, we look at the odds and what it takes to win the WSOP Main Event. The WSOP Main Event has always been a major thing in poker, but average field size has risen dramatically since Moneymaker's 2003 victory. To reach the final table these days, you must survive thousands of players, both excellent and bad, who are all focused on the prize. The World Series of Poker is really the world's only sporting event that pits amateurs and full-time professionals against one another. As long as you can afford the $10,000 buy-in, you are a contender for the WSOP Main Event champion. There are a variety of factors in winning the main event. One is, of course, your skill level. Winning any poker tournament, especially one as massive as the WSOP Main Event, requires a certain amount of luck. If it were purely a luck-based competition, your WSOP odds should be shared equally among all contenders. If there were 5,000 entrants, then your odds of winning would be about 1 in 5,000. But we know that is not the case. It becomes much worse if you are an amateur or recreational player who doesn't truly study the game. All professionals have a little advantage over their opponents, which increases their odds by a few points. As a result, the remainder of the field's chances of winning are diminished. So, if we take in the variance in the preceding scenario, your chances of winning are probably closer to 1 in 10,000 or worse, depending on your skill level. To give you a better perspective, Phil Ivey and Daniel Negreanu were given odds of plus 5,000 to win the 2018 main event by some of the biggest bookmakers. They predicted that Negreanu and Ivey should take home one of the 5,000 main events they compete in based on their abilities, background, and prior successes. Therefore, if bookmakers are offering these odds for someone like Phil Ivey in a field they anticipated to contain somewhere around 7,000 players, they'd undoubtedly offer far lower chances of success for the ordinary Joe. Having said that, the WSOP Main Event does not seem like a particularly tempting concept when considering only the odds. It's not as difficult as winning the lottery, but it's also not all that far away either, practically speaking. On the other hand, the prize makes fighting against the unfavorable odds well worth it. It's also important to remember that most people exaggerate their poker skills. You will therefore have a minor advantage over the field if you are a competent player. The main event frequently draws a large number of amateurs who are completely unfamiliar with the game. In the early stages, it's easier to survive. The blinds are low and there are tons of amateur players. This means you can wait around and pick your spots to double up. As the days go on, the blinds make it harder to survive, and shorthand action means you can't just wait around anymore. The probability of professional players also increases during this stage as more skillful players become the most likely to survive this stage. When you get to the final 9, Vegas odd makers start making official odds for the final table. These tend to range from plus 100 all the way up to plus 2,000. So, you can say that the odds are considerably larger when there are thousands and thousands of players at the beginning of the tournament. There's really no hard numbers or statistical studies on what the odds are for an amateur player, as there are so many different factors at play. Some people have estimated to be as high as 1 in 100,000. The buy-in was a significant barrier that discouraged amateur participation throughout the majority of the history of the WSOP Main Event. However, the popularity of online poker rooms that offer satellite tournaments meant that hundreds, if not thousands, of amateur players were making their way to the main event. While each individual amateur's odds of winning decreases with skilled players in a larger player pool, the odds of an amateur winning the main event increases because there are so many of them. Now, pros have to survive a minefield of amateur players throughout the tournament with unpredictable playstyles. Poker pros tend to do well in the WSOP Main Event. They have won 33 of them, which account for 67%, but on 16 occasions, an amateur has come out on top. While many of those amateurs went on to become poker pros, they were not at the time of their victory. The bottom line is that even if you start playing as soon as you reach 21 and participate in every main event for the next 50 years, you are unlikely to win it in your lifetime. Of course, this only applies if the current trend continues and the fields continue to be massive. Your chances of winning were substantially greater back in 2003 when Moneymaker won the main event, since there were only 839 participants in the field. Everybody had considerably greater chance of becoming the Poker World Champion back in the 1970s and 80s when main events drew anywhere from a dozen to a few hundred participants. It was still a prestigious title, but the money you'd take home wasn't anywhere close to today's insane amounts. The math says that you were unlikely to win the main event these days, but the math says that for every player, not just you.